would be my guess. I don't think they're going to, if it's not productive, then I don't think anybody's just going to sit there just to sit there. That's certainly not our style, but it is going to go on for as long as it's productive. And were you trying to say something, Katie?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it sounds like from ATU that their biggest concern is the 4-year, the length of the contract, and they feel like being in a wage freeze for 4 years is unreasonable when the economy could turn around sooner than that. Is that something that BART has considered, a 2-year contract rather than a 4, or would be willing to?
Katie, actually what happened during the course of negotiations prior to July 31st was that the unions did approach us with a 2-year contract. And we entertained that and put together a proposal that would be just for a 2-year contract, and we were fine with that. And then the unions decided to change course and go to a 4-year contract. And that's what they did a tentative agreement on, because for whatever reason they decided they wanted to go back to a 4-year. That was their choice. So for ATU to turn right around again and play games with us to go back to a 2-year contract seems a little bit disingenuous, and I don't think that the board, at least from what I've heard, I don't think that the board is going to go for a 2-year. Now that may change tomorrow, but at this point, going back and forth, it's like, listen, make up your mind. And they did make up their mind. It was a tentative agreement on a 4-year contract, and now that the tentative agreement has been rejected, now they want to go back again.
Did you just say that the board will go for a 2-year?
The board initially said that it would go for a 2-year contract, and we started negotiating on a 2-year contract and put together a proposal for a 2-year contract at the request of the unions during the negotiation process. And then the unions came back and said, no, we want a 4-year contract. Right. And then on July 31st, we had a 4-year tentative agreement. And now, once again, we're back to a 2-year contract. Some would argue that that's bargaining in bad faith.
If the objective is stopping the bleeding, to what extent are layoffs an option, an alternative to imposing terms to avoid a strike?
The layoffs, imposition of terms and conditions, all of that will be on the table. All of that could be implemented. Could be a combination of all of the above.
How about increasing rates?
Everything is on the table. Oh, you mean increasing the fares?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't think that's on the table. The BART riders they're already shoveling more money out of their pockets earlier than expected. And in some cases more than we anticipated. I don't think that's where they're going. Listen, the SEIU and AFSCME participated in this process. They understood the economic conditions that this agency was facing, and they did their part. Overwhelmingly, they voted for this contract. They did their part to help their riders and the taxpayers out. ATU did not. And ATU may face the consequences, according to the board, on Thursday.
And Linton, just to clarify, be discussed tomorrow to impose contract terms. That's for the contract, the settlement terms, not the earlier proposal that BART had earlier in the game.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm just brain dead after.
If the board were to decide to go ahead and impose contract terms, they would impose the terms in the contract that was the terms and conditions that were the tentative settlement, not some previous.
No, it's not necessarily limited to the tentative agreement.
Oh, so the board might go back to some of the earlier proposals, which the union liked even less.
Correct.
Okay.
Linton, what's the downside to a 2-year contract from the district's perspective at this point, if that could settle this whole thing?
The downside to this contract?
If you said, let's go for a 2-year deal, if ATU said, boy, what we heard the most concern about was the 4-year duration of the contract. If you guys did 2 years, it might be something we could live with. there any reason for the district not to agree to that at this point if it avoids a strike?
Well, I think what it listen, I don't think that's, personally, I think a lot of board members that I've heard from don't think that's fair. SEIU and ASME, SEIU are biggest union, almost 50% more people in that union than are in ATU, and then you combine that with ASME, a very important union. They overwhelmingly said they wanted this 4-year deal, and then to suddenly go do a 2-year deal is not fair. That's what some of the board members are saying. And so, you know, they'll have to have that discussion on Thursday to see what they actually do. But, you know, that seems to be the sense right now that I'm getting from the board.
When the district negotiators are going back to the bargaining table today, it's with what attitude? Is it that you know, this is our last best offer, you need to take it, or is there real willingness to see if some kind of negotiated settlement can be made with changing the terms of the contract that was rejected?
I think they're going back with an attitude of trying to find out why the ATU membership didn't approve this contract and to figure out where we go from here. But I understand what you're trying to ask, and I can't particularly characterize it without getting myself into a little bit of trouble. So I'm just going to kind of dodge that question there.
If they did 2 years for ATU, they would have to then redo the other two as well? They couldn't just let those stand, ASME and SEIU? If BART says, okay, ATU, you can have your 2-year deal, you have to go back and retool the other 2 unions as well?
That's very complicated. I mean, tomorrow's really going to be, I mean, the board has got to make some major decisions tomorrow, and that is something that they're going to have to look at. And, you know, again, the sense of the board is, look, the 2 unions overwhelmingly supported this contract deal. They wanted to show the riders and taxpayers that they were involved and wanting to help out this district and our customers. And they voted overwhelmingly for this. And if they did it on a 4-year deal, it seems like everybody else should do it on a 4-year deal as well.
Hypothetically, in the negotiating session today, whatever you call it, if there's movement and the union agrees that there's some concessions, how soon will the vote be taken and it be ratified, you know, the ATU?
You'll have to ask them. I'm not entirely familiar with their procedures on how much notice they have to give, and then following that, I think it's 3 days, but I'm not entirely sure.
Sorry, what was that question?
The question was, how soon could ATU go back if, say, we come up with some sort of tentative agreement? Could the membership vote on it?
Oh, okay.
But you'll have to ask ATU what that is.
Hey, Linton, what time is the meeting?
They should be meeting at any moment. They're running late. Everybody's running late today.
Linton, is there a chance that any kind of settlement can be reached tonight? Is there a reason we need to get out our sleeping bags and camp out somewhere?
I'm praying for a miracle.
If there is some kind of agreement reached, how are you going to get word out about that?
We'll notify you probably in the normal ways with the media pagers and with probably a press release of some sort.
Linton, when you were obviously close to the negotiations when we came to a tentative agreement at July 31st, was there a sign at that time that there were dissension within the ranks of the ATU about this contract? And I mean, even at that point, we were hearing reports, oh, we've been working really hard, we're getting closer and closer, and we're not that far apart. So is there a huge gap here with what the ATU is requesting? Or have they even presented anything, or is this meeting the first opportunity for them to present any sort of give and take?
Could you hear that on the phone, the question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think the answer to that is that the ATU membership vote speaks for itself as to how wide the gap was between the members and the union leaders.